The air in my childhood bedroom hadn't changed. The smell of old pine from the dresser, the faded rose curtains that hadn't been replaced since 1993. Even the ticking wall clock was the same, though somehow, it ticked louder in the dark. I had returned to Asheville under the kind of pretense no one questioned, caring for an aging mother. But that wasn't the truth. Not the whole of it. The silence here wasn't comforting. It was dense. Alive. My mother, Patricia, hardly spoke anymore. When she did, her words were clipped, half-lived. The house echoed with the kind of quiet that people tiptoe around. I'd been back for a week. In that time, I'd noticed the changes, how the pantry items shifted shelves too often, how Miranda's keys would jingle at hours no one should be awake, how Mom never asked about my work but always knew what time I logged off. One memory kept surfacing, Miranda, maybe 7, swiping my lunch money, flashing that angelic smile that charmed teachers and camouflaged every lie. I hadn't forgotten. I just stopped letting it hurt. Have you ever felt something was wrong before you had proof? It's not a hunch. It's a pulse beneath the wallpaper. A vibration in the floorboards. A whisper at midnight. That night, I heard it again. Just past 12, the house still as a mausoleum, I lay still on my side, spine rigid, eyes shut. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Familiar. Then a whisper, urgent, breathy. The pin is 8345, I swear I saw her type it. Miranda. Her voice was older now, hushed but sharp. The way she whispered reminded me of how she used to lie, confidently. Easily. I didn't move. Not even a twitch. Another voice responded, lower, male. I couldn't make out the words. My body tensed, but I stayed still. Years of learning to listen before reacting paid off. Let them think I was asleep. Let them play out their plan. They didn't know I'd heard. They didn't know I'd changed the pin 2 days ago. And they didn't know I had always been the quiet one for a reason. If they thought I was weak, they hadn't been watching me closely enough. The betrayal wasn't new. It was just louder now. 1 week ago, a notification on my banking app alerted me to a login from a strange IP, an address out of Wilmington. Odd, considering no one but me should know my access code. I didn't panic. I observed. I watched. Then I baited. 3 transactions, $3, $2, and $1. Tiny withdrawals. The kind most banks wouldn't flag. But I did. I changed the password. Set up 2-factor authentication. Placed an audio recorder beneath the hallway vent. Miranda thought she was clever. She wasn't. She thought this was new. She was late to the game. What would you do if your family tried to outsmart you? Would you confront them? Or would you watch, gather, prepare? I chose the latter. It hurt. Of course, it did. But pain doesn't drown me anymore. It fuels. Aunt Adele used to say, blood can lie. But patterns never do. And Miranda, she was nothing if not predictable. Patricia allowed it. Her cold detachment fed it. A house like this doesn't rot overnight. It decays in small choices, over years. I wasn't angry. I was done pretending. I would not warn them. I would wait. The room remained dark. My fingers tapped silently under the blanket, counting the rhythm of my own breath. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. My phone lay beneath my pillow. I tapped the screen, 2 denied login attempts tonight. They were trying again. The recorder was still running. The small light blinked under the vent. I'd rehearsed this. They'd take the bait. Probably make a test purchase in the morning. Maybe a coffee. Maybe something from Amazon. Just enough to confirm the number Miranda whispered. But it wasn't the real one. I'd let them believe it. This time, I whispered into the dark, I'm letting them think they're winning. There's something satisfying in silence, especially when you know it won't last. Ever let someone walk into their own trap? Not because you're cruel, but because they insisted on calling your silence weakness. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't unaware. I was waiting. And they were walking straight into the fire. The footsteps faded. Back down the hall. Into Miranda's old room. Or maybe the kitchen. Didn't matter. I turned in bed, eyes wide open. Cold. Clear. The trap had been sprung. I didn't need to stop them. I just needed them to go far enough. The morning wouldn't be ordinary. I woke early, sunlight just brushing the hem of the curtains. My breath was steady, my posture slack, the perfect image of someone who had slept through the night without interruption. It was an act, of course. But here, performance was survival. The hallway smelled faintly of brewed tea and something floral, lilies. When I reached the kitchen, Miranda was already seated, hair curled too carefully for a casual morning. She poured a cup of chamomile and slid it across the table toward me. For your nerves, she said. Stress isn't good for you, Elle. Patricia sat nearby, oddly quiet, her spoon tapping a slow rhythm against her teacup. A vase of lilies stood on the table. Gerald's card was tucked between the stems. Hope you're settling in, it read. He'd never given me flowers growing up. Not once. The lilies were a peace offering, or more likely, a distraction. I smiled and sipped the tea. Thank you, I said. It's lovely. But in my chest, the tension was rising. Have you ever received kindness that made you feel uneasy? Sometimes, warmth comes wrapped in warning. The table was filled with too much normal. Patricia humming an old church song. Miranda chattering about the neighbor's new puppy. They were forcing harmony, and that dissonance struck louder than any argument could. As I cleared my plate, I walked past the study. The door was slightly open. I glanced inside, just a glance, but it was enough. The antique safe in the corner had a smudge on the dial. Barely visible, but fresh. My breath didn't catch. It stilled. I closed the door gently, continued walking. They tried. That was all I needed to know. Later, I passed the hallway mirror and saw Miranda's reflection on FaceTime. Her voice lowered. It's time we handle that money situation. Patricia's voice, from the phone, snapped sharper, you're moving too slow. Miranda's expression twisted, annoyance first, then replaced quickly with a practiced smile. When I stepped into the room, she turned, all brightness. Hey! Just talking to Aunt Kathy. You know how she gets about brunch planning. I raised an eyebrow. Of course. Forgot a file. Don't mind me. I walked away with calm steps, my mind ticking fast. If someone talks about your money like it's theirs, what do you do? Back in my room, I pulled up the hidden feed. The motion detector had tripped between 2:15 and 2:35 a.m. The footage showed Miranda, dressed in black, crouched by the safe. Her hands were gloved. She twisted the dial slowly, ear close to the metal. A sound down the hall made her freeze. Then she fled. I didn't smile. I noted. She was learning. That mattered. I logged the attempt. I adjusted the sensor sensitivity. I changed the position of the secondary camera. I'm not here to protect the money, I whispered. I'm here to expose the need. People show you who they are. Believe them the first time. Lunch brought more pageantry. Patricia, with her rosary out, mentioned her sudden concern for my future. How's your retirement holding up? She asked, stabbing her fork into a cherry tomato. Solid enough, I replied. Haven't had to touch it, thankfully. Miranda laughed too loud. Elle always was the planner. I tilted my head. Remember the time you all locked me out during that thunderstorm? I was 10. Blank stares. They didn't remember. That was all I needed. What's the moment that told you couldn't rely on someone? Mine came with rain and a locked door. That evening, I checked the camera again. The feed was dark. Unplugged, but only for 7 minutes. Just enough time. They're adjusting, I whispered. In the drawer beside my bed, I found it. A note. No envelope. No signature. You should get more sleep. It's good for the mind. I smiled, slow, calm. But my eyes sharpened like cut glass. I got to the office 30 minutes earlier than usual, hoping the sharp click of a keyboard and the logic of spreadsheets would reset my mind. Numbers never lied. They didn't wear false smiles, didn't pour tea with poison intent, didn't erase your face from the hallway wall. I sat down, opened the file for the quarterly review, and started entering values. By habit, my fingers moved, but my eyes they hesitated. I had misplaced a decimal. Twice. My jaw tightened. Marlo leaned over the cubicle. You all right, Elle? Just rough sleep, I said. She nodded and smiled. But I wasn't all right. My work was suffering because the numbers at home no longer lined up, in more ways than one. Have you ever let stress from home follow you to work? It sneaks in quietly, like mold behind fresh paint. Midway through a database sync, a ping broke my concentration. Dual login alert. My banking app. One login from my work IP, as expected. The second, from the Voss residence Wi-Fi. Timestamp, 9:43 a.m. I was in a meeting then. The screen glared back like it wanted to confirm what I already knew. Someone logged into my account. From my home. While I wasn't there. I exhaled through my nose, calm and cold. I filed an internal report through my security protocols. Set a trap alert, silent, untraceable. Then I closed the tab. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was cyber theft. I had my proof. When I walked into the Voss house that evening, I paused before the photo wall in the hallway. Something was off. It took me a beat to register. 3 frames were gone. Not random. 3 photos of me, alone. My graduation. The Regional Math Award. The savings certificate from my first teen job. The wall looked normal if you didn't know what was missing. I knew. Miranda breezed in from the side door, arms full of grocery bags. Hey! Could you help me with this yogurt thing? It exploded in the bag. I nodded. Didn't mention the photos. They're not just stealing from me, I thought. They're erasing me. It's not the thief that steals the most, it's the one who makes you feel like you never existed. My phone buzzed. Bank security. Ms. Voss, following your report, we did notice 3 failed login attempts using guest pins. All this morning. From the same location? Yes, your home network. Would you like us to freeze the account? No, I said. I'll handle it. I opened the settings and adjusted the withdrawal limits, staggered the triggers. Anyone thinking they were close just walked into another net. Let's see who takes the bait next. Ever had to outsmart someone by making them believe they were winning? It's the most elegant form of justice. I went back to my room. Took out my logbook. Wrote it all down. Dates, times, names, reactions. Miranda's eyebrow twitch. Patricia's sudden interest in my savings. Then I wiped my phone. Set up encrypted backups across 2 new drives. Unmarked. One stashed in the vent, another behind the loose floorboard beneath my nightstand. I was invisible now. And invisibility, I was learning, was power. Still waters run deep, Aunt Adele once told me. Still minds run deeper. I didn't need fire. I needed focus. Later that night, I walked in and saw it on my desk. A plain black USB. No note. No dust. It hadn't been there this morning. I plugged it into a quarantined laptop. Only one file, proof.mov. My heart didn't race. But my breath caught. The thumbnail was unmistakable, the hallway angle. A camera I hadn't told anyone about. One that should have been hidden. I clicked. 3:13 a.m. Someone stood in my room. Hooded. Gloved. Opening my drawer. Slowly. Searching. They left nothing behind. But someone else knew. I leaned in. It's not just theft anymore, I whispered. It's war. Dinner was quiet, too quiet for a family that claimed to love one another. The table glowed under low light, the china was perfectly aligned, and the air smelled faintly of rosemary and unease. Patricia sat across from me, her posture formal, her expression calm. Alara, she said softly, setting her fork down. Your retirement savings are safe, aren't they? Miranda laughed lightly beside her, twirling her wine glass. You've worked so hard, sis. You deserve peace of mind. The question hung there, delicate, polite, and poisonous. Yes, I said, smiling. Why do you ask? No one answered. The silence was louder than words. I could feel their eyes flicker between one another. The sound of the clock filled the space between lies. Have you ever felt a casual question cut deeper than an accusation? Because it's not about the words, it's about what's hiding underneath them. After dinner, Miranda moved toward the kitchen, stacking plates too neatly, humming too deliberately. She forgot a folder she'd brought from the study, sliding it across the counter like a magician hiding the trick. A thin card peeked from the corner, a corporate issue from a bank I'd opened years ago. She glanced at it, then at me, as though measuring my reaction. Old paperwork, she said. You left it in the file box, I think. I turned the card over. My signature. My name. The same account that had been probed. I placed it on the island, smiled faintly, and said, You're thoughtful. In that moment, everything aligned, the whispers, the scratched safe, the false pin. They were testing boundaries, inch by inch, thinking the walls between us were soundproof. But sound carries, even through plaster. They were whispering again. And I was listening. Later, I returned with a glass of water. My hand brushed the hem of the tablecloth where I'd hidden the recorder the night before. The red light was still faintly blinking. Jordan Hale's words echoed in my head, "Collect the evidence. You don't have to shout to win." I pressed record. Patricia's voice came first, low and assured. "She won't notice. She never does." Miranda answered, almost bored, "She's too wrapped up in her numbers." Their confidence was my opening. I moved toward the doorway, setting the glass down softly. My reflection in the kitchen window looked steady, calm eyes, still shoulders, a mind sharp enough to slice through pretense. They believed I was predictable. They were wrong. When I returned to the table, Patricia spoke again. "We're all family here, Ilara. You don't have to be so guarded." I smiled. Family loves honesty. It doesn't whisper after hours, does it? Miranda's fork froze midair. Patricia's hand trembled slightly. No one spoke. I stood, slow and deliberate, and walked out. In the hallway mirror, I caught my reflection again, not the woman who had returned home to make peace, but the one quietly taking back control. The one who no longer flinched. Sometimes your silence speaks louder than their noise. Did you let it? That night, I sat in my room, the house dim and still. The recorder pulsed beside my laptop as I plugged it in. Static first. Then words. A woman's voice, Miranda's, the combination, 421 next. Then she'll have nothing left. Patricia murmured agreement. I leaned back in my chair. Calm. Focused. My pulse was steady. They just told themselves they're safe, I whispered. That's their first mistake. I closed the laptop, the faint smile on my lips never reaching my eyes. In houses like this, the walls may be thin, but truth seeps through faster than they think. The desk lamp cast long shadows over my notepad, where numbers bled into dates and dots into patterns. I reviewed every alert the bank sent over the past 72 hours, eyes sharp despite the hour. Quiet filled the room like a second skin, comfortable, familiar. I didn't need noise when numbers spoke louder. I changed the PIN to my primary account again. Not because I needed to, but because it was part of the stage dressing. My real move came next. I activated a secondary account, one that hadn't seen activity in years, and linked it to a Bait debit card. I transferred just $6 into it. Enough to tempt. Too little to mourn. Next, I set a trigger. Any transaction over $5 would alert me in real time. The trap was dressed in digits. They want easy money, I whispered to myself, sipping bitter coffee. I'll give them something easy. Jordan Hale's voice clicked in my ear, a memo I'd saved for this exact moment. You don't catch them when they panic. You win when they act predictable. Have you ever turned the tables quietly, so quietly they didn't realize they were losing? It doesn't take much. Just patience. Later that night, I sat cross-legged on the carpet of my room, eyes on my recorder's display. I whispered into the device, "No, I didn't tell them about the safeguards. They think I sleep. They always think I sleep." The same recorder, now tucked beneath a stack of books in the hallway, picked up Miranda's voice around 1:17 a.m., sharp, hurried, a little too excited. "She's clueless," Miranda said on FaceTime. "Let's move the funds tonight. Before she checks anything." The phone was muted, but the movement in her expression was all I needed. Her eyes danced with arrogance. I glanced at my bank screen. The Bait card sat at $6. Unassuming. Waiting. They'd bite. And when they did, it wouldn't be just greed, it would be proof. If you could plant evidence and let someone walk into it, wouldn't that feel powerful? By 2:08 a.m., I'd logged into the app again. I adjusted another setting, all withdrawals over $100 on any account now required biometric two-step confirmation. I saved the new logs. I created duplicates. Then I emailed them to Jordan, subject line, "They're next." A voice in my head, from my childhood, from the days when I counted coins to buy school lunch, reminded me, always count your pennies so someone else doesn't count them for you. I studied the safe again in the kitchen wall, the one they thought I'd never check. Then the debit card with the bait pin. Then the timestamps of every odd login in the past 10 days. It was financial chess, and they hadn't realized I'd been playing 3 moves ahead. In real life, financial freedom is less about having money and more about making your money safe. I tucked away my notes. I disconnected my hard drive, labeled it in bold black marker, evidence, not for family eyes. On my way to the hallway, I passed Patricia's room. She gave a half smile, the kind that used to disarm me. I nodded politely. Inside, I felt nothing. Not fear. Not rage. Just control. The best revenge doesn't scream, it whispers. Back in my room, I turned off the lights and left the blinds slightly open, just enough for moonlight to trace the room. I lay still. I waited. At exactly 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed. One new notification. Withdrawal attempt. Bait card. $6. They'd tried. And I was awake. They thought they found the vulnerable one. They found the strongest instead. I arrived just after 7, the villa glowing in warm amber light. The dining table was set with calculated elegance, linen napkins, wine glasses catching the last blush of daylight. Everything was curated. So was I. I wore the deep green dress I knew Patricia liked, the one she once said made me look non-threatening. She met me at the door with a double kiss, her perfume heavy, her smile too quick. Miranda's eyes flicked to the hallway clock and back. After dessert, she whispered behind my ear, as if that phrase belonged to something neutral. Family matters. Of course. I sat across from Gerald. He nodded at me in that absent way he'd perfected, nothing behind the eyes but discomfort wearing a polite mask. I sipped my wine slowly. I didn't flinch. My father always said, sometimes, stillness unsettles more than fury. Have you ever been invited into a meeting where you weren't sure if you were guest or target? That's what dinner felt like. The soup was tomato bisque, Patricia's Sunday favorite. But it was Miranda who steered the conversation with surgical precision. Alara, she said lightly, spoon pausing just above her bowl, have you had a chance to think about the estate? Your savings and all that? I folded my napkin. I think about my savings more than most think about their choices. Patricia leaned forward slightly, voice buttered. We just want to be sure you're comfortable with how everything will be divided. Transparency is important to us. The word divided echoed longer than it should have. I smiled gently. Yes. I am comfortable. Their smiles didn't falter, but something behind them twitched. Patricia's spoon trembled just slightly as she brought it to her lips. Miranda glanced down at her napkin, then back up. I'd just rewritten their script in one line. Dessert came in the form of apple tart, plated like it belonged in a magazine spread. Miranda passed me an envelope folded in thirds, her voice easy. Could you look this over for us sometime this week? I unfolded it slowly. Inside, a crisp bank card. My name etched on it. A sticky note beside it read, "For immediate transfers, as discussed." The last 4 digits, 8345. My chest didn't rise. My heart didn't race. They think they're convincing me. They failed. I nodded, tucked the envelope beside my wine glass, and took another sip. My mind had already logged it, bait card, matching whisper, digital signature confirmed. I pressed my forearm gently against the linen napkin. Inside it, the recorder activated. Jordan Hale's words clicked again in my memory, "When they try to walk you into your trap, don't flinch." Patricia leaned in and said, "We're just securing what's ours." 1. Miranda chimed in, "It's better for everyone this way." 2. The recorder blinked softly inside the napkin fold. My smile never broke. Is it revenge if you play fair and win legally? I rose from the table with slow grace, thanking Patricia for the meal, complimenting the tart. I caught Mrs. Rowan Green's gaze by the doorway. A brief nod passed between us. She was always more than the housekeeper. I hugged Patricia lightly, kissed Miranda's cheek. The choreography of manners. Gerald's eyes followed me as I stepped toward the hallway, his expression slightly fractured. He knew something, or at least sensed it. But silence, like always, held him in place. Upstairs, I slid the envelope into my purse, latched it. The door closed behind me with a soft click. Tomorrow, they'd move. I knew it. And I'd be ready. I woke at 1:47 a.m. without knowing why. The house was still, the kind of quiet that hums under the skin. A sliver of light seeped through the crack beneath Patricia's door. That never happened. She was always asleep by 10, the house dead by 11. I slipped out of bed, bare feet silent against the cold hardwood. As I neared the door, I heard them, 2 voices, close but urgent. Patricia's breathing, labored and low. Miranda's whisper, "Is it ready?" "The files are ready." I leaned closer, my pulse steady but sharp. My watch display glowed faintly, and with one silent press, the recorder began to roll. I could feel the air vibrating between the words they didn't say out loud. Numbers. Files. Transfers. Their guilt wasn't loud, it was careful. Have you ever heard something that convinced you weren't safe, even at home? That's how it felt, as if the walls themselves were warning me. I moved away before the floor creaked. The study door gave a small sigh as it opened, and I slipped inside, locking it behind me. My computer flickered to life with the faint buzz of the hard drive spinning up. The footage from last night loaded slowly, grainy images across the landing. At 2:13 a.m., Miranda appeared on screen, her movements sharp, eyes darting toward shadows. She clutched a small USB drive, crouched before the wall safe, and tried the dial. When the motion sensor blinked red, she froze. For 2 full seconds, her fear was visible, her face pale under the camera's low-light filter. Then she bolted. I scrubbed forward through the video. There it was again, a sticky note pinned by the safe, the faint digits 8345. The whisper had become evidence. But that wasn't all. Another file showed Patricia later that night, opening Miranda's laptop. On the monitor, I could make out folders labeled with my name. They weren't just stealing. They were archiving me, documenting my activity, framing their theft as my error. I shut the laptop, exhaling quietly. The moment for fear had passed. This was precision work now. I opened my secure messenger and typed to Jordan Hale, "We have timestamp plus theft attempt. Tonight I move." Then I prepared a simulation, a dummy account transfer file linked to my bait card. It looked legitimate, down to the logo. Any unauthorized move would trigger an alert straight to Jordan and me. When someone digs into your life, I murmured, you don't repair, you redesign. I changed the bait card limit from $5 to $10. That would bait them just enough to feel bold. I dressed in jeans and a plain gray shirt, hair tied back, eyes sharp. Everything about me that night was deliberate, not hidden, not open, just ready. At 3:22 a.m., the screen blinked again. An email slid into my inbox. Notice, your account is closing due to unauthorized activity. The irony almost made me smile. The phrasing was sloppy, the header font mismatched. It was a phishing attempt, but from inside the network. Patricia or Miranda, I couldn't tell. I forwarded it to Jordan with 2 words, exactly as scripted. Then I sent another message to Mrs. Rowan Green, our neighbor and quiet witness. 9 a.m. meeting. Bring what you saw. Patricia's old words replayed in my head, she never sees what happens. She was wrong. I saw everything. Do you think silence protects you, or places you in the crosshairs? I had my answer. By morning, the first light touched the curtains. I brushed my teeth, the mint burning just enough to wake me fully. My phone buzzed on the counter. Notification, withdrawal attempt, $12.34. The digits blinked on the screen like a signature. I looked up into the mirror and said softly, game on. I stepped into the hallway. The safe door was cracked open. The red light of my hidden camera still glowed steady. I didn't touch anything. Didn't move closer. Instead, I sent one message. A single word. Ready. By noon, the truth would have its own headline. At exactly 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. I didn't jump. I'd been waiting for it, watching the screen before it even lit up. Attempted withdrawal, $5,000, flagged, suspicious activity. The bait had worked. Clean and neat. My coffee sat cooling beside me, untouched. I looked at the alert, saw the account freeze in real time. It was beautiful. Elegant. They'd gone for the bait card, greed made them predictable. I leaned back and toggled a switch on my banking app. Every card linked to my name would now send live alerts to both me and Jordan Hale. I didn't just want proof, I wanted trail markers. Their fingerprints on every attempt. Have you ever set the trap and known, without doubt, you were the victor? That quiet satisfaction is a rare currency. I was collecting it one alert at a time. Downstairs, the day was beginning like any other. But inside, I was already ahead by 5 moves. I could hear the shuffle of slippers on hardwood when Patricia started pacing. She always did when control slipped from her hands. Miranda's voice was sharper this time, slicing through the air, it's locked. She knew. She always knew. I didn't stir. I sat in my room, watching waveforms from the recorder I had hidden under the hallway table. Their panic played like a morning radio show, predictable and pathetic. I spoke softly into my own recorder, they thought I slept again. They were wrong. My eyes drifted to the wall safe. I'd left a fine layer of dust on its edge, just enough to pick up a new fingerprint. The hinge was still faintly warm. They'd tried. Again. They weren't just thieves anymore. They were messy amateurs crashing into a chessboard. After lunch, I made the call. Mrs. Rowan Green? My voice was calm. I need to show you something. We sat on her floral love seat, the scent of lavender soap surrounding us like an old hymn. I played the clip, Miranda's voice, then Patricia's. The whispers. The pin. The talk of moving funds tonight. Her expression stiffened. Her hands, folded tightly, didn't twitch. I suspected, she said slowly, but I didn't know it was this. Calculated. I looked her in the eye. I didn't plan this to punish them. I planned it for clarity. Is it vengeance if you build the case and let them fall by their own steps? Maybe. But it felt more like revelation. By 3:45 p.m., I was on a video call with Jordan Hale. They try to move this morning, I said, lifting my mug. $5,000. He whistled. They walked right in. Beautiful setup. He outlined the next legal steps: account freeze, document authentication, evidence timeline. Maya Angelou, he said toward the end, once said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. You believed them the second. That's still justice. I closed the laptop with a soft click. The game had shifted. This wasn't about worry anymore, it was about order. The sun was lowering as I stood by the front door, purse on my shoulder. My key clicked into place. Behind me, the house held its breath. No one came to stop me. The door opened to late afternoon air. Cool. Steady. I stepped forward. At 2:13 a.m., my phone vibrated under the pillow. I didn't have to check, I knew what it was. I turned on the screen anyway. Motion detected, safe room, Voss residence. I slid on my robe, walked to the desk, and pulled up the hidden footage. There she was. Miranda. Moving like she'd done it a dozen times before. Gloves on. Hair tied tight. Her hand hesitated at the keypad, then punched in the numbers. The safe opened. She reached in, paused, and looked around. My lens caught the subtle smudge her thumb left on the brushed metal. I leaned back, voice low, you walked right into it. Have you ever watched someone act, knowing you built the scenario? That slow burn of quiet confirmation, it's better than applause. By noon, I walked into the kitchen. Patricia and Miranda were already there, eyes on their phones, pretending nothing cracked. Without speaking, I placed the manila folder on the table. The red tab read, timestamp 2:13. USB inside. Patricia's fake smile twitched. Miranda cleared her throat and glanced away. I didn't yell. Didn't flinch. Just stood. Silence swelled, thick and final. Power shifted not in the volume, but in the stillness. I didn't need their confession. I had time. Evidence. Law. I pulled out my phone and called Jordan Hale. Execute now, I said. Freeze all accounts. He answered like he was waiting for it. Under review. Locked. Including theirs. When I hung up, I exhaled for the first time all day. In my journaling app, I typed, money talks. I stopped listening. Walking past Miranda's office door, I didn't stop. But I saw her glance up, jaw clenched, caught in something she didn't design. When you stop running, you watch your pursuer trip. I wasn't running anymore. Later that day, I brewed a second pot of coffee and invited Mrs. Rowan Green to the backyard. She came with a sweater over her shoulders, her eyes curious. I need you to see this, I said. I opened the laptop and played the clip. The footage. The whispers. The digital fingerprints. She watched in silence. Then, I always felt something was off. Thank you for letting me be heard. That hit deeper than I expected. This wasn't just about defense. It was about being seen for what I truly was, not what they said I was. I closed the laptop with a soft snap. Just then, the hum of the neighbor's lawnmower stopped. I heard footsteps. Not mine. I stood at the front door with my keys in one hand and a carry-on in the other. The house behind me was quiet, as if holding its breath. I could hear the ticking of the hallway clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, and my own heartbeat, slow and deliberate. Patricia appeared behind the door, half expecting me, half hoping I'd change my mind. She opened it a few inches. "You're leaving?" she asked, voice steady but fragile. I nodded. Yes. I'm leaving what we called home. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Inside, Gerald sat on the couch, blank-eyed, holding a mug he wasn't drinking from. Miranda stood by the window, arms crossed. They weren't trying to stop me. They just watched. Have you ever walked away from someone you thought would always stay? Because I had. And I was doing it now. I handed Patricia a sealed envelope, legal documentation, notarized, clean. You may keep this address, I said. But you may not claim any right over the assets. She opened the envelope slowly, scanning the first few lines. Her breath caught. We're family, she whispered. I held her gaze. Family doesn't require silence anymore. Her lip trembled, and Miranda scoffed from behind her. You'll regret this, she said, stepping forward like she was still in control. I didn't flinch. Maybe. But not today. As I walked to the car, I felt it, not anger, not even victory, just release. Like I'd been underwater and finally surfaced. The departure wasn't surrender. It was power. Reclaimed. Quietly. I slid behind the wheel, adjusted the mirror, started the engine. The old guitar station played a soft folk song. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. I looked back just once. The Voss house, shrinking in the mirror. A fortress of deception, now nothing more than bricks and paint. Maya Angelou's words floated to the surface of my thoughts. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I believed them now. And still, in the sadness, there was relief. Not all losses are tragic. Some are freedom. What happens when the door you shut behind you becomes the one that frees you? I turned onto the road. The trees blurred past. The hills of Asheville flattened into memory. I tapped out a message to Jordan Hale, file ready. We're closing the chapter. A flicker of warmth hit my chest. This wasn't the end of a war, it was the beginning of a life. They taught me silence, I whispered. I turned it into armor. Next to me, the passenger seat held a folder, documents, recordings, truth. And then my phone rang. Caller ID, Adele Monroe. I answered. She said, "Welcome home." Morning light spills across my desk, soft and unhurried. The new house smells of cedar and peace. I sit with a mug of coffee, scrolling through messages I'll never answer. On one corner of my desk sits a neat pile of unopened envelopes, Patricia's handwriting, Miranda's too. Each stamped and dated like proof of something long past. The top one reads, "We want to talk." I trace the edges of the paper but don't open a single one. I already know the rhythm of their words, justification disguised as apology. I remember saying once, family doesn't whisper behind your back, does it? Now I live by that truth. I set the letters aside. Their words don't matter until they act, I murmur, and take another sip of coffee. Have you ever kept a letter unread because the act of reading meant you were still part of their story? I choose to stay outside theirs now. My phone buzzes with a new message, Jordan Hale. A link appears, for review, nonprofit registration, Women's Financial Clarity Project. I smile. What began as defense has turned into purpose. I open my notes, draft the first mission statement, helping women recognize financial manipulation before it breaks them. I add a line underneath, silence was survival once. Now it's strategy. Jordan's message follows, you've built something solid, Ilara. Not out of fear, but out of foundation. I glance at my reflection in the laptop screen and whisper, use your story not to shrink, but to illuminate. The words feel like breath, mine now, not borrowed. I draft the first social post, when they whispered your pin, they underestimated your power. It feels bold, maybe even funny in its own way. Adele Monroe's voice echoes in my head, calm and affirming, you turning your pain into purpose, that's real freedom. If you turned your setback into a stepping stone, who would you tell first? By afternoon, I call Mrs. Rowan Green. Would you like to join as an advisor? There's a pause on the line, one filled with memory and recognition. I've watched, she finally says. I've waited. You give voice to what I couldn't say. That hits deep. I realize this isn't about revenge or closure, it's legacy. I'm no longer defending my story, I'm giving others a way to write theirs. We plan a small webinar for local women over 55, topics like safe banking, emotional manipulation, inheritance traps. Mrs. Green volunteers to moderate. Sometimes your win isn't just for you, it's for the one who watched and believed you could. As evening settles, I close the blinds halfway, leaving a sliver of orange light cutting through the room. I glance once at the letters again and whisper, thank you for showing me what silence taught me to survive. Then I look beyond them, to the road outside, to the future I no longer fear. I open a blank journal and write, impenetrable isn't about walls, it's about knowing you won't stay behind them. When I close the laptop, my phone pings, a breaking news alert. Woman who blocked family theft now launches free financial blueprint for retirees. I read the headline once, then smile, quietly, completely. The morning air is cool, almost sweet, as I step out onto the terrace with a mug of chamomile tea cradled in both hands. The hills of Asheville stretch out like velvet folds under the dawn light, gold and soft, not asking anything of me, just existing. I breathe it in, steady, full, complete. This home, this space, it isn't just a new address. It's mine. Fully, quietly, finally mine. I glance around the small garden I planted weeks ago, rows of lavender, rosemary, a budding rose bush still finding its footing. I touch the gate latch, remembering how many locks I lived behind, not all of them physical. The memories flicker, whispered pins, surveillance cameras, empty reassurances. Now they are just that, memories. No longer threats. A quote I once scribbled in my journal resurfaces, each time a woman stands up for herself, she stands up for all women. I didn't just stand, I built. I turn the gate handle and smile, more to myself than anything. Today I open more than a door, I open a life. What's the first step you take when you reclaim your own space? Back inside, I sit in my home office, laptop open, external drive plugged in, labeled in permanent marker, evidence, not for family eyes. I scroll through the files. Voicemails. Bank alerts. Audio logs. All pieces of the past, lined up like brittle bones. One file catches my eye, pin_8345.wave. I don't press play. I don't need to. I remember the cadence of Miranda's voice, low and urgent, thinking she was whispering into a void. The power, I realize, was never just in proving they did it. It was in knowing they no longer could. I copy the files again, one final backup, not for safety, but for structure. These aren't scars anymore. They're scaffolding. The nonprofit project page is nearly ready. I schedule the first webinar topic, When Loyalty Costs You Your Future. I title the announcement video with the line that started it all. While I was sleeping, I heard my sister whispering my card's pin. I just smiled. That smile wasn't weakness. It was design. At 11 a.m., I press publish on the homepage, Shield Her, Financial Autonomy for Women 50 Plus. A quiet ding, 27 signups. I sip my tea. Then another, Jordan texting, first coffee chat confirmed. You're already helping. I think of Adele Monroe's last call, you raising others is the legacy you choose. She was right. If your story helps just one person take back control, it was worth telling, wasn't it? I walk through the house again. The rooms no longer whisper. They reflect. The dining table catches the sun on its edges. Once a battlefield, now a piece of wood that holds no ghosts. I touch the wall as I pass and say quietly, thank you for teaching me not to whisper back. The breeze outside picks up. I step through the back door, onto the gravel path that winds toward the small gate at the edge of the garden. Behind me, the house doesn't pull. It doesn't cling. It just stands. I close the gate softly. I don't lock it. My voice is steady, silence didn't protect you. Preparation did. And now, purpose does. As I walk toward the open stretch of grass beyond, the gate behind me creaks slightly, lifted by the wind.